Welcome back to Musical Connections. This is NextIIConnect. I'm Zach Snow, and joining me right now, they are one of the fastest rising francophone singer-songwriters in the province. Their album, Leaning In, Se penche vers with their band, is set to make a lot of noise in the year 2024. Joining me right now is the one and the only Liz Fagan. How you doing, Liz?
Hi, Zach. I'm good. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. Congratulations on the release of your debut album, Leaning In, Se penche vers. It's under the Liz Fagan Band name. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for supporting the podcast from the very get-go. I seen you like all my stories, like all my posts, and I really need that. And
Bless.
because sometimes I don't really notice like how many people are supporting or listening to the podcast, and have that consistent support there. It really means the world to me, so thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
Now, of course, again, congratulations on Leaning In, Se penche vers. I hope I said the last name right.
It's good. It's totally good.
Off the hop here, how are things with you?
Great. I'm doing stuff. I feel kind of like a juggler. I'm always juggling things. But it's great. Yeah, we've been playing shows, and I've been writing some new stuff, and it's just a lot of fun. It's really cool to see everyone, or not everyone, but it's cool to see people enjoying the music. It's really nice.
Oh, I enjoy that music as well. I've played a couple of tracks from that record. I believe Hurricane Season was the first single, and I don't know what other song I featured for newfound releases
the week
of the record. But of course, it's a great album top to bottom.
Thank you.
And I've heard about you for a couple of years because I found out about you through the Refugee and Immigrant Advisory Council show Radio React,
True.
which aired way back in 2019, but is now no longer in existence due to the council collapsing. But first things first, I just want to go back to what got you started in music in the first place. So what inspired you to play music?
What inspired me to play music? So my dad taught me how to play guitar when I was 13, and I'm 31 now.
Oh, wow.
I had to learn on his right-handed guitar, but I'm left-handed, so I learned this way. But fun fact, whenever I play air guitar, it's always left-handed, even though I've never held a left-handed guitar
Oh,
before.
wow.
Fun fact. But no, so I guess since I was 13, I just heard, the first band that I really heard that I was like, oh my God, this is everything, was Radiohead.
Oh, wow.
And I remember I was in grade 8, and we watched the Romeo and Juliet, the Coppola film, and then the scene where Leonardo DiCaprio walks in from the beach and they play talk show host. I was like, and it just changed me forever. So yeah, I would say ever since then.
So what is your favorite Radiohead album by chance? Would it be like OK Computer, or would it be one of the earlier records?
I believe that it's kind of like a parent and their children, you know? You can't really pick, but they give you very different vibes. I loved... Let's see. I always say that my favorite is Hail to the Thief.
Oh, okay.
It's got a lot of nostalgic value for me, but I also thought that In Rainbows was a masterpiece. Yeah, so I listened to the Bends a lot when I was in high school, but I think Hail to the Thief really... I hope that people who know that album can hear kind of how much I love that record in my songwriting, because a lot of it is like open weird chords and like slightly minor chords. And I don't know. I just really like the airiness of it. So I hope that works.
Yeah, so you were definitely influenced by 90s alt rock and grunge, where grunge and, post-grunge, so like grunge music with radio-friendly tendencies was really like, starting to take hold on the rock and roll scene in the 90s and going on into the 2000s.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Radiohead as one of your big influences on what got you into music in the first place. So tell me a little bit more about some of the other influences that influenced your music taste.
I was really inspired by, oh my goodness, there's so many, for very different reasons. I think the biggest influence on my songwriting, has been Land of Talk.
Okay.
They're an indie band from Ontario, but also from Quebec. And they're really great. Lizzie Powell is... the lead singer, and they're the primary songwriter, and just with that they put songs together and do all the guitar work themselves. It's just like incredible. Who else? I also love Daffo. Daffo is a big influence of mine right now. And my goodness, a lot of bands. I'm currently inspired, and you're gonna find this funny. I'm currently inspired by Parisian rap.
What?
Like the rap scene in Paris. Because they have this stage presence, and they're kind of like, they do all this stuff, and I'm extreme. Like, even though I'm very talkative and very loud, how do I say this? Sensitive, I guess, is the word. So it's kind of tricky to get all that. And then
Yeah.
all these rappers, they have this swag. And I try to like channel their vibe on stage because they do all this stuff. And I'm like, I've always wanted to move like that on stage.
Yeah, yeah.
So a Parisian rap is going to really, like Necfeu, L'Ompal, those are just like...
Yeah, so like in the case like showmanship, so basically
Yeah.
like whenever you're like talking in between songs, so like this song I wrote like in this office here where we're doing this interview or
Yeah.
something, and then just kind of like the moves that they
Yeah.
make on stage. Is that something that you really have implemented in your sets now? Now that you're on this like Parisian rap?
from Paris, yeah. So
Try saying that 10 times fast.
yeah, Parisian rap.
Parisian rap.
But I feel like lately I've been letting myself do more of what I want to do, which is extremely difficult, especially if you've been conditioned not to be who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been, when I performed, I was kind of like stock still holding my guitar and kind of afraid of being perceived. And I realized that when I play at home, when I have my mic and all the lights off, I'm just like vibing quietly to myself. I'm doing all this weird, like David Byrne, you know what I mean? From the Talking Heads, all this weird stuff. And it just makes me feel so good.
And his legs like move like this.
Or his dance move, which consists of him walking up and down stairs to the beat of the song. Just like and it might not even be confidence. It might just be feeling safe enough to kind of like stim or to let yourself just like do whatever feels natural. So I feel like because I have been consuming Parisian rap for a couple of years now, but I realized that like I can bring that sense of like, I don't care what you think about when you look at me. So
do you still feel like you're trying to find out like who you are as a performer and as an individual as well?
I think as an individual, I tell people, so yeah, yes, I think I answered your question. I always say I experience myself at the exact same pace as everybody else when they experience me. I think of myself as like being kind of plural, where I have like me in English and then me in French, and they're very different people. And then I have the person that writes my music, which I call the musician. But it's technically, we share a body, but I don't think of them as me. I think of them as like my favorite musicians, where I'm trying to like channel all of the things that I love, and like I try to emulate that on stage. So I call that essence the musician. But that's why I never take credit for their work. I'm like, that's the musician. I didn't do that. But it is me writing the songs. But yeah, I've had a really hard time. We probably shouldn't get too deep, but.
If you want to, go ahead.
Fair enough. I had a really hard time growing up because socially I was extremely like this, like bouncing off the walls and wanted to hug everybody and stuff. And I had this stutter, and I was just very obviously queer and very obviously neurodivergent. So people really didn't like me. And then I decided that I didn't want to be me, so I became something else.
Yes, you became a whole other different person than what you thought you wanted to be.
And then, but then you realize that the creation is also not necessarily you either. It's what people force you to be. It's very interesting.
Oh yeah,
but
exactly.
I think of myself as like a community. The best way I can describe it is like, think of yourself when you're walking in jogging pants or when you're walking in a suit. Like you walk differently, you might speak differently, you might carry yourself differently. And all those things are like different parts of you. So I feel like I'm different. The essence of me is still pretty consistent, but I feel like I kind of show up in the world in a bunch of different ways.
But yeah, so like what you said earlier, so you're still trying to find out like who you are as an individual, but as a performer, would you say you've found who you are as a performer?
I think that I've been, or the band really, bless the band, shout out to the band, have created a safe space where I can let myself be in public who I am when I'm by myself making music. So it really wasn't about creating anything. They just kind of opened up the windows so I could shine light on what I wanted to be and the kind of music I wanted to make.
Yeah. So are those experiences of growing up in your early years, teenage years, and now into your adult years, are those like some of the topics that you like to put on paper when it comes to writing your songs? So tell me a little bit about like what you enjoy most about songwriting.
I love songwriting because a thing that I've learned in my 30s is that the more specific you get about your experience, the more people can relate to it. So I used to think it was selfish of me to write music. I remember I was playing a show in Labrador one time, and this lady, this sweet lady, said to me, "Why do you write music when there's already so much beautiful music in the world? Why would you think that's a good idea?" So like that's one of the voices that you carry with you that says you shouldn't write music.
Yeah, it's that little voice in the back of your head saying, "Don't do this," but.
Yeah.
When you're living in the moment right now, you got to do it.
Yeah.
But there's still that voice in the back of your head that says, "Please don't do it. It's not worth it."
Yeah, so I write music because it feels really good. And so because so before I went to speech therapy, and I still do have a stutter, but prior to my speech therapy, singing was the only way that people would listen to me. So unfortunately, I guess, it was good, so people would be nicer to me. But it took me a long time to let myself write music because I didn't think I was a good enough songwriter to do it. And then again, people that I've met along the way, like the local musicians, have just been so extremely good to me, kiss on the head to every single one of them, that have been like, "These are good songs." And I'm like, "Geez, really? Thanks." So I'm not used to being encouraged. How about that? So now that I've been encouraged, I'm just kind of letting myself be what I've been since I was like 13.
Look, I'm going to encourage you even further. You've come a long way since I've seen you first at a Radio React. Now, I don't remember you being, or I don't remember myself being there that day that you did the recording session for the show. But to see you come from what you were then to who you are now,
yeah.
It's inspiring. And I think
Thank
people
you.
can, look up to you as, someone that says like, "Hey, I may have a stutter. Hey, I may have experienced tough times,
Yeah.
but I can come out of it and become the person I want to be,
Yeah.
and I can become a role model to some people."
Bless. If me living authentically and being afraid but loving, like I always say, I love being afraid because like you know that you're alive and you're doing things.
Yeah, you're in the moment too.
Yeah. So I feel like if that can help anybody stand in their own truth, then I'm just honored. But I just look at it as I'm just trying really hard to be me. So it's tricky.
Absolutely, and I'm looking forward to more growth from you.
Thanks.
Now, of course, you are not just an English singer-songwriter, but you've dived into francophone music as well.
Yep.
You were one of the inaugural nominees for the Music.nl Francophone Artist of the Year
I was.
at the past Music.nl Awards, which ended up going to Porta Poutines. Tremendous francophone folk duo. They're amazing. They were one of my previous episodes on the Musical Connections podcast, episode 61. Check it out. But of course, check this one out as well. So, what drew you to francophone music, and why did you want to pursue that so much?
Yeah. So I have to say that the connection is not to French music; it's to French. So
the French language.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah. So I my parents, even though they're Anglophone, they put my brother and I in a French school in '96. So we've been in that forever. And actually, they kind of gifted us a little secret sibling language so we can talk about things in front of our parents and they have no clue what we're saying. But I realized that I had access to this whole other world. So I kind of kept French in my back pocket as if I were to, or if people didn't like me in English, they might like me in French. So, and then about 7 years ago, I decided to make the switch. So I've been living pretty much my life in French for the past 7. I even do my taxes in French.
Wow.
I haven't worked an English job in 7 years.
That's crazy.
And the majority of my friends are francophone. So I do, but again, whenever I meet someone who doesn't speak either English or French, I'm realizing that they only have access to that one part of me. So I call them Liz and Liz, and they're very different people.
Oh, okay. So Liz and Liz.
Yeah.
But I'm just accepting you for who you are. I don't matter if it's Liz or Liz. You are who you are, and you've added really a whole another dimension to yourself. And I think it can make you not only a better individual, but a better performer as well.
Yeah, I will agree with that because a lot of my favorite French musicians, so people like Pomme, people like Necfeu and Lompal, people like Pomme, like I said. Carquois is a great band from Quebec that I really loved. It's dreamy, ethereal rock. And then there seems to be, how do I describe this? I read a quote that said, "If you speak a language but know nothing of the culture, you're a fluent fool." So, and I, like a lot of these things that are not just the language, like the way that they perform is different. The songwriting, Stromae writes in a very like conversational way. It's kind of like rap, but he's singing it and he has this operatic voice, and it's just the way that he performs is so interesting. And a lot of these musicians, I don't know, it just seems like a different world. It's like you get to look behind the looking glass and see all this stuff. And what I tell my students, because I tutor too in French, is like you can be whoever you want to be in French, even if you can't be that in English or whatever other language you speak. You can kind of create a different character in French to kind of help you. And then I always feel like I perform differently as Liz than I do as Liz, because the songs are different.
Again, it doesn't matter if you're Liz or Liz, you are who you are. But again, that whole other dimension, you've evolved. And this album that you put out about a month or two ago.
March 22nd.
March 22nd. Geez, the past like month or so just feels like a blur to me.
Same.
2024 is going very, very fast.
Yep.
But I just want to stick with the francophone scene for a moment, because yourself, Louise Gauthier, Ben Zekman Spiral, and Porta Poutines were the 4 inaugural nominees for the Musicannel Francophone Artist of the Year category at the past Musicannel Awards in St. John's. So what are your thoughts on the Newfoundland Labrador Francophone scene overall?
It's amazing. I see it as this really beautiful little bud, like un petit bourgeon, like a little bud, like the trees right now, right? And it's gonna get so big, and like it feels like each like corner of the genres, because okay, I have to finish one thought before I start another thought.
Go for it.
Each pedal is like it's all there and it's happening, like it's actively
sprouting.
Yeah. Because one thing that I realized from being in the Anglophone scene kind of is that people think of French, like they think that French music is one thing. And it's like saying Newfoundland music. I mean, if you think that Newfoundland music is just Celtic music, then you're missing out on like 12 different subgenres of other genres of music.
This is the point of the podcast.
Absolutely, and thank you for doing that. But yeah, so French music, like Louise Gauthier does this like operatic, like chanteuse, like soft piano stuff. Porta Poutines are just like tearing it up, having a good time. Ben Zekman Spiral is very contemplative and world music, and it's such a different dimension to it. And who else? Goodness. Laura Penny also is extremely talented, and she has all these effects. And I played a show with her at the Battery last weekend, and she blew my mind. And again, she has a bilingual set like me.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, she's really, really cool. And I'm just so grateful that I get to be here. Adrian House, obviously.
Oh yeah, he's got a new record coming out in the next month or so
good.
too.
It's a French record. It's 100% French record.
Gotta get you on the podcast too, my friend.
Yep. So and then they're like helping, and I was telling them this. I told Porta Poutines this for sure. I was like, they're not redefining it. They're defining it. French music in Newfoundland is not just what's documented already. It's what's happening right now. So I think it's really important to kind of participate in it actively. I've met members of every music scene in St. John's, and there are people in there that speak French. Whether or not they feel like their French is good enough, which as a sociolinguist, I think that everyone's language is good enough. But people who speak French, but they're a little bit nervous to speak in French, but like they have always wanted to write French music, and they're like, but am I French enough? And I'm like, dude, like you can write, you can just do it. You can do it. So
yeah.
But yeah,
it's all about getting out of your own head.
Totally, which is why community is essential. If I did not have people telling me you should make this record, this would be a good record. If I didn't have the band, that record never would have happened.
Oh, for sure.
So that's like, I never take credit for anything, because I feel like I'm every person, I am the manifestation of every time that someone supported me. So I feel like I'm like 30 people.
Oh my God.
That's a bit much,
but trying to be 30 people at once is, pretty much impossible. Mm-hmm. You can only be the one person that's living in the moment. But you have 30 thoughts going on all at once.
Yeah.
Isn't being neurodivergent fun?
Yeah, I'm telling you. It's so funny. I mean, actually, I would argue that it makes me extremely productive. I get a lot done. Yeah, and I find it extremely helpful. Yes, I would even say that it makes my life better.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a big fan.
So I'm gonna ask, so ADHD, autism, because I'm on the spectrum.
Fair enough. My therapist says I'm on the spectrum. So I mean, I've been diagnosed, so I have a formal diagnosis of OCD and anxiety. I got that when I was 18. And then I was informed by my psychiatrist that I was neurodivergent, and then my therapist said, "But you know that you're likely autistic, right?" And
Yeah.
I was like, "Okay, yeah, sure." But it didn't bother me because I've always, like, when I was younger, like I was saying, very like queer and like bouncing off the walls and like all this stuff. And I was like 5.
But like the habits of
Who knew?
ADHD and autism, like to me, go hand in hand in a way. Like there's some qualities of each that interlink with each other. So
Fair enough.
And I only ask that because I'm on the spectrum myself,
Cool.
and I'm so open to talking about it now because
Which is amazing.
back in the day, like I was ashamed to be considered on the spectrum.
For sure.
But now it's I'm very proud to be on the spectrum because I got 2 awards now to back it up: Media Person of the Year for Music NL and East Coast Music Association.
We're
so
thriving.
to me, if you can be yourself and have this be like a part of you but not define you, you can do anything you set your mind to.
I agree. Yeah, it's I like to think of it as not who I am, but they're tools that help me be me.
Exactly.
I find that really helpful.
For sure. Now, this new band you got put together, it's yourself, Chad Feenan,
Yes.
James Benoit, and
Correct.
there's another person that's
Kendall Pittman.
She
Yeah.
plays in Poor Forms too, right?
She does indeed. Yep.
So,
Grand.
how did this new band come together? Because, as you said before, if it weren't for the band, Leaning In Sip Punch Ever would not have happened.
True. True. How do I describe this? How did it come together? Mutual adoration. That's how it came together. I've been a huge fan of all 4 of them individually. And I have to say, I didn't consider the vibe of all 4 of us together. I just said, I want you, and I want you, and I want you. Because they were musicians that I saw all the time, because I love to go to shows, and you'll often find these lovely folks at shows. And they just said yes. I said I've been sitting on these songs for like 3 years, 4 years, and I can't make them happen by myself. And they were like, yeah, sure, we'll give you a hand. And it started off as like, we'll help you make your record. And then as we jammed and played together, I was like, I don't want this to like ever stop. Can we just be a band? And they were like, yeah, sure. And it became this like super duper wholesome, heartwarming thing. And it's been really healing working with them. So big fans.
So, do you think that they've helped you, become a better performer and an individual just by, being around them?
Yes, because I can't believe that musicians of that caliber want to support me. If you've heard any of their music, they're all extremely talented. Kendall, under the name Kep, is on Spotify and has like thousands of listens or streams, I guess. And Chad's been in the local downtown scene for, my God, probably 10 years. Does electronic music and plays in so many different bands, and is just has a great perspective on music and performance and songwriting. Awesome songwriter. And then James is just magic. Like, I remember when I heard their 2020 tapes, I was at a Piper's shopping, and I had to pull the cart over and cry. It was unreal. And all of them, this is one of my favorite things about each of them, and I'm sure they're tired of me complimenting them so much, but I do. All 3 of them have many different projects where they do a lot of different things, and they're still them. There's this like core themness that's still there. So when Chad is DJing or when Chad is like writing, because he's a journalist, you can tell that he wrote it. You can tell that it's him mixing it. It has this like Chadness. And Kendall, when he's playing a cover, or if he wrote it, or writing things on the synth or the guitar, it just without even looking at it, you could tell it was him. Mm-hmm. Same with James. If James is mixing something, or like you could hear 15 seconds of a clip and go, I bet James Benoit had a hand in the mixing of this, and sure enough, they had. So I'm just really impressed by people that are that versatile, and they're just artists. All 3 of them are artists. So.
Yeah, and they were big help in putting together this debut record under the Liz Fagan Band name, Leaning In Se Penche Vers. So tell me a little bit more about the album, and I want to know what Se Penche Vers actually means.
Tight. It means leaning in.
Oh, same thing in French?
It means leaning in, but you know what? You're correct to ask, because a lot of the times, titles are not translations.
Really?
So, no, yeah.
Wow.
So like the film The Hangover, I think is called Le lendemain après la veille. So like the day after the night before.
Oh, wow.
Like it doesn't mean The Hangover because
doesn't
if
make
it
any
did,
sense.
it would mean La Gueule du Bois, but they don't translate it. They give you an
Gotcha.
alternate title. But I wanted it to mean the same thing. Yeah, so se pencher, the verb is to lean forward, and then vers is like towards something, because you're not just leaning, you're leaning towards something. And that came from therapy, where I was talking about getting to know all these new feelings, because I was getting used to being myself, which is really weird if you're neurodivergent. Like I feel like I'm experiencing humanity and like feeling my way through life through people, and I learned that it's okay to not feel really comfortable and that you can lean into the discomfort, and that's where that came from. And then a lot of the songs are just about like letting yourself feel the thing. So yeah, those songs have existed for probably 3 years. The oldest song on that record is probably Disappointed, which I wrote while I was living on the West Coast in Newfoundland. I was teaching in one of the French schools there.
Oh, wow.
Yep, and it's about a house fire. My neighbor's house caught fire.
Jesus.
And then Azur and Fleur Fanée both existed in English first. I would play them around town, but they were about totally different things. Because I always say at my shows, if you translate anything, it's not the same thing anymore. You have to change one word, and you got to change the sentence, and the whole meaning is different. But then a really dear friend of mine, Caroline Fortune, she helped me. I said, I'm going to come over and we're going to rewrite these songs. And she really helped me. Like, I had a rough idea, but she like polished it up, and she's just a poet. She's a beautiful writer. And she kind of helped me translate the vision of the songs. And then Clover, which was originally a love song for a woman, became Azur, which is about queer mermaids. And,
wow.
And Fleur Fanée, which was originally called Halfway, it was about living in St. John's, and now it's just about an unreachable friend. So, people, as the kids say, the real ones know, if you have come to my shows in the past 3 years, you would have heard Halfway and Clover. Those songs now exist only in French. So, yeah.
That's amazing.
It's fun.
Do you have a favorite song from that record? If so, what would it be and why?
Yeah.
I like doing these questions because it makes you think.
It's tricky. I love it. I love them all individually. Again, the parent with their children.
Oh yeah.
But I have to say, like,
Take your time.
Okay, I'm gonna say 2 songs because there are 6 songs on the record.
Sure.
But there are 2 that I love super duper much, and I couldn't actually. I kind of think of them as like chapter 1 and chapter 2. Chapter 1 would have to be York, which is a really uncomfortable song that I wrote about not feeling safe in a big city, perceived as a person. When people perceive you as a woman, how unsafe that can be, and all of that, all of the lyrics are accurate and true, and it's about like being chased down the road and not feeling safe, and people like manipulating you and like luring you and stalking you, and it's extremely uncomfortable and frightening. And then I wrote this kind of uncomfortable guitar part, and even the way that it was mixed, it feels very close. So it's almost too close to you, and you kind of want to pull back. Mm-hmm. It's uncomfortable. And then I tried to use chords that were kind of like dissonant, and they're not completed chords, they're kind of open. And then even the song structures, so there might be 4 bars in between the verses, or it could be 8 next time, and you don't really know how, you can't really groove along to it because it keeps changing so much. It's supposed to make you feel unsafe and really uncomfortable. So I'm really proud of York for that. It became a really special song. The other one is Hurricane Season, which is the single. Actually, that one is the most recent song that was from the record. It was the youngest song, I should say.
Okay.
I wrote that song in probably June, because November, I think. Wait, now, what's hurricane season in Newfoundland? I remember
from
being the first.
June 1st to November 30th.
There you go. I knew June. Where was the song? Okay, there you go. June 1st was hurricane season, so I wrote a song on June 1st. And it was about a friend that was in my life who was really struggling. And wherever they went, everything would just fall apart around them, and they had no idea why. And they were like genuinely oblivious as to why everything was falling apart, and would never address any of their own behavior or like ask themselves what was happening or why were they in these situations. And then as I wrote it more and more, I started to realize it was also kind of me. I'm also kind of that way. And people tell me that they're kind of that way too. So maybe being a hurricane friend, I always say when I play it, this is about a hurricane friend. Maybe there's kind of a hurricane friend in all of us. But I'm really proud of that song because it was the first song that I wrote that sounded like the music that I wanted to make when I was 17. But I didn't think I was cool enough. And I have to be honest, that's why I didn't write that kind of music before. Because I didn't think I deserved to. I didn't think I was cool enough to write music like that. So
look at you now.
Yeah. But tell you, that's the band. The band did such a good job, and they trusted me. The band has a large level of trust for me, especially with the French songs, because I mean, Kendall speaks French. We actually did an interview on Radio-Canada together. It was very fun. But like, they don't know what I'm singing in those songs. They just trust me. I was like, I could be singing about world domination, and they wouldn't know, right? So, but with hurricane season, they really trusted me, and then they knew that it was uncomfortable. And at the end of the song, I scream really loud, and it's like a horror film scream because it just felt so good. And they never said, don't do that. They never said, what did you do that for? They were just like, I was sick. And I'm like, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, because that hurricane season is the last song on the record, right?
It is indeed. It is indeed. Yeah, I feel like it sounds the most like how I want to sound. And the way that it's mixed, again, James is brilliant. It's mixed. It's got this like fluffiness to it when you listen to it, even though it's like super aggressive is the wrong word. It's very confrontational, I would say, musically. And then the way that it's mixed, it's like almost like a blanket wrapped around you, and it's really interesting the way that it was done. Also, James also produced it with me, so it was very special. But yeah, I like to share this too. The friend about whom I wrote it never got to hear it, and then they actually cut ties with me on the first time that I played it live with the band.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
It was horrible. I mean, it happened during the sound check. I went home and I cried, and I was like, now, am I going to go back and play the song? Or like, what am I going to do? Because we've been best friends for like years. And then I was like, I'm going to go back and do it. And then I, actually that's videos on YouTube of me screaming and shaking around like someone going through something, and that's what happened in that song. So I feel like it's kind of perfect. I feel like it kind of like predicted what was going to happen with that friendship, and it did.
Now, on this journey on trying to find yourself, you have sought therapy.
Yes.
And but in a way too, music is kind of therapeutic as well, because you can write all these things down, and then when you get to record them, and then when you let out that bass scream at the end of the hurricane season, it's cathartic.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It is. It feels really good. I get all tingly whenever I do it. The first time I did it, I was like, I almost passed out. I screamed that hard, and I didn't even know I was gonna scream because we hadn't rehearsed it like that. It was a house show actually in December, I think, and we were gonna like debut our band. It was our band's first show, and again in the rehearsals, I never screamed. That never happened. And then I was just getting into the song, and then at the end of the song it kind of falls apart, the tempo goes off, and we're all playing the wrong chords on purpose, and it kind of descends into chaos. And I was like, and I remember saying to Chad, I didn't know I was screaming until I noticed that it was leaving my mouth. I was like, I'm screaming. Oh, that's interesting. And I was just screaming so hard, and it felt like a very old scream, if you know what I mean. It felt like I was a little kid. Felt like I'd been saving that for a long time.
Yeah. So like once you let out that scream, it was like a release of everything that you've been through, and now you can just like move on and just like be this whole new person that you never thought you'd be.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it felt great.
Glad to hear that. Now, of course, you're gonna be playing a couple more shows over the course of the summer. What else is next for you, Liz?
More music. The band is writing more music, and it's a lot of fun. And it's just really fun. It's really healing to be able to create with people, because in order to be curious, you have to feel safe. So shout out to Chad, James, and Kendall for making me feel safe, and to like bring ideas that I think in my head are terrible, and I'm like, look, I wrote this song, I don't think it's very, what do you think? And they're like, yeah, it's sick, it's our new song. It's like, cool. So you need people to support you. And you don't need everybody to support you. You really don't. Actually, that's kind of impossible. But you need someone to believe in you, because that's how you can create. That's what I think anyway. So yeah, just love. What's up next? Just love, mutual support. That's what's up.
And confidence in yourself as well is going to be another thing that you can use in your toolbox to, become a better person and become and just be yourself too. But the support system's great to have as well. Totally. Now we're going to play one of those songs you said were your favorite after this conversation on Next to Connect. But for people who want to find out more about your band and just more things Liz Fagan, where can they go? Tight.
Y'all can find me on Instagram. I'm there all the time, at Liz Fagan Music or at Liz Fagan Band. We're also on YouTube called Liz Fagan Band, and we're on Bandcamp and Spotify and Apple Music and streaming. But mostly just all of our shows I post on Instagram and Facebook, so you'll find me there.
Well, Liz, I can't thank you enough for coming on the Musical Connections podcast. We actually scheduled to do this before I went off to Charlottetown.
We did.
But of course, you were under the weather that week, and we had to move it to Charlottetown. But now I'm just trying to get my energy back. Of course, just came back from Charlottetown.
True.
2024 Media Person of the Year, co-winner. Pretty insane. But if it weren't for people like you who supported the podcast from day one, I would not have been able to get the 2 awards that I've gotten right now. And from support like yourself and many other independent musicians or superstars, I would not be where I'm to right now, 75 episodes deep into this podcast and still going. So Liz Fagan, thank you so much for joining me on Next to Connect. Thank you so much for supporting the podcast. All the best to you, and congratulations once again on all your success now and what's to come ahead.
Thank you, Zach. Appreciate that.